The Quiet Boy. Long ago. This is the story of my childhood. Other children from my street remember their childhoods with joy. They remember sunny days and playing games outside until dark. My own childhood memories have a very different kind of sound. They have the sound of angry words whispered in another room. They have the sound of doors closing just a little too hard. My childhood was not a playground. It was a quiet battlefield. Our house looked normal from the outside, with a red door. It had a small garden with flowers that my mother planted, but inside those walls, the air was always very heavy. My parents loved me. I know they did, in their own way. But they did not know how to love each other very well. Their arguments were the constant sad music of our home. Sometimes their fights were loud, with shouting that shook the walls. I would hide in my room, and I would cover my ears with my hands. I would pray for the loud noises to stop and just go away. But other times, the fights were quiet, and that was much worse. They would not speak to each other for many days at a time. The silence was cold, and it was sharper than any angry word. I was not like the other children who lived on our street. They were carefree, and their laughter was a bright, happy sound. My mind was always busy. I was always full of worry. I became a very quiet child. I tried not to make any noise. I thought if I was good and silent, then they would not fight. I thought that somehow their anger was my own fault. I learned to watch their faces very closely for any small signs. A tight mouth on my father, a sad look in my mother's eyes. These were the warning signs that a new storm was coming. My bedroom was my only safe place, my only small sanctuary. It was a little island in the middle of a very stormy sea. I would close my door and pretend that I was in another world. I spent most of my childhood with the heroes in my books. They were my best friends, and they took me on amazing adventures. They took me to places where parents did not ever fight. I did not like to play outside with the other neighborhood kids. Their games seemed loud, and I did not know how to be carefree. My mind was always listening for sounds from inside my house. The heavy weight of my parents' anger was always on me. It was a backpack full of stones that I carried every day. It made me feel much older than I really was at the time. I remember one Saturday, my friend invited me to his house. His name was Alex, and he lived just a few doors down from me. I was nervous to go, but my mother said I should try. I walked into Alex's house, and it felt like another planet. It was quiet, and it was calm. The air was so light and easy. His parents were in the kitchen, and they were laughing together. His mother offered me a cookie with a very warm and kind smile. His father asked me about my school, and he listened to my answer. They spoke to each other with a soft and loving tone. We played in Alex's room for hours with all his new toys. I did not hear a single angry word or a door slam shut. I felt a strange new feeling, a feeling of simple peace. When I went back home that evening, the contrast was so sharp. The silence in my house was loud. My parents were not speaking. I went to my room and I felt a deep and profound sadness. I understood then what I was missing in my own childhood. I was missing the peace and the safety of a truly happy home. I was missing the simple joy of a family that was not broken. After that day, I stopped going to my friends' houses to play. I did not want to see what I could not have in my own life, and I was ashamed of my home. I did not want them to see. I never invited any of my friends to come over to my house. I was so afraid that they would hear my parents start to fight. I built a wall around myself to hide my family's secret. My schoolwork started to suffer because I could not focus. My mind was always somewhere else, worrying about my home. My teachers said I was a smart boy, but I was too quiet. I was a ghost in the classroom. I was a shadow on the playground. I was an expert at being invisible and not being seen. It was the only way I knew how to survive my childhood. So I found a new escape, a world that I could build myself. I started to build model airplanes in my small, quiet bedroom. It became my new passion and my only real, true hobby. The work required a lot of focus and a very steady hand. It was a delicate process of gluing small pieces together. It was something that I could control in my chaotic world. While I was building my models, my mind would become very calm. I would not hear the arguments or feel the tension from downstairs. I was in my own world, a world of focus and of creation. My room became my workshop, filled with tiny airplane parts. I had models of old fighter planes and big passenger jets. Each one was a small victory, a thing of beauty I had made. I would spend all my free time there working on my planes. It was my way of flying away from the problems in my home. I was the pilot of my own life, if only in my own room. My parents did not understand my hobby, but they let me be. I think they were happy that I had found something to do. They were happy that I was quiet and that I stayed out of their way. My collection of model airplanes started to grow much bigger. I had them on shelves all around my room, hanging from the ceiling. They were my army of silent friends, my beautiful creations. I learned so much about history and engineering from my hobby. I read books about the planes and the pilots who flew them. My hobby became my teacher and my best and only friend. I saved my allowance to buy new models every single month. The man at the hobby shop knew my name and what I liked. He was one of the few adults I felt comfortable with. He would tell me about the new models that were coming soon. He saw the passion in my eyes, and he encouraged my hobby. His shop was another one of my very safe and quiet places. My parents' fighting did not stop. It actually became worse. As I got older, their arguments became more and more bitter. The angry silence between them could last for many long weeks. But I had my models. I had my world of plastic and of glue. I thought I could escape from them forever in my own room. I thought the walls of my room could protect me from it all. I was wrong, because some storms are too big to hide from. The sadness of a broken home can find you anywhere you are. It can seep under the door and fill up your safest place. One evening, my parents had the worst fight I had ever heard. The shouting was so loud it felt like the house was shaking. I ran to my room and I slammed my own door shut tightly. I put on my headphones and tried to listen to my music, but their angry voices were much louder than the singer's voice. I could feel their anger vibrating through the floor of my room. I decided to work on my newest model to calm my nerves. It was the biggest and most complicated plane I had ever built. It had hundreds of tiny pieces, and it needed so much focus. I was working on the delicate wing of the airplane. My hands were steady, and my mind was starting to feel calm. I was escaping into my world. I was flying away from them. Then I heard a loud crash from downstairs that shook the house. It was followed by my mother's cry, a sound of so much pain. My heart stopped beating, and a cold fear washed all over me. My father shouted something terrible, something I cannot forget. Then I heard a door slam so hard that my whole room trembled. One of my prize airplanes fell from its shelf on the wall. It hit the floor, and it shattered into 100 small pieces. It was my favorite one, a plane that took me a month to build. I looked at the broken parts, a mirror of my broken family. In that moment, I realized I could not hide from this anymore. The fight had finally broken through the walls of my safe room. It had shattered my peace, just like it shattered my model plane. I sat there on my floor, surrounded by the broken pieces. I was not a pilot. I was just a boy in a very sad house. And for the first time, I felt I was as broken as my plane. I did not try to fix the broken airplane the next day. I carefully picked up all the shattered pieces from the floor. I put them all into a small box, and I pushed it under my bed. It felt like I was putting away my own broken childhood. My ability to escape into my hobby was now completely gone. The sadness of my home had finally broken my only shield. After that big fight, something changed between my parents. The loud shouting stopped, but it was replaced by something worse. A permanent coldness filled our house, like a winter that never ends. They lived in the Alex house, but they were like two strangers. They spoke only when they had to. Their words were short and sharp. The love in our home was gone, and only anger was left. I changed, too. After that night, something inside me broke. I was not the quiet, good boy trying to be invisible anymore. A new feeling started to grow in my heart. The feeling of anger. I was angry at them for breaking our home and my peace. I was angry that I did not have the happy childhood of others. This anger was a fire that I did not know how to control. At school, I started to get into some small, stupid trouble. I would talk back to the teacher or not do my homework. It was my way of screaming, because I could not scream at home. One day, a teacher kept me after class to talk to me. I thought he was going to punish me, but he did not do that. He just looked at me with kind eyes, and he asked what was wrong. I do not know why, but I told him a little about my home. I did not tell him everything, just that it was not a happy place. He listened patiently, and he did not judge me at all. This teacher, Mr. Jack, saw the sadness behind my bad anger. He suggested that I should try to write my feelings down. He gave me a notebook, and he told me to write my story. At first, I did not want to, but I tried it one night. I started to write about the fights and the cold, sad silence. The words came out of me like a river that had been blocked. Writing became my new escape, my new way to understand. I could put my anger and my sadness onto the empty page. It did not fix my home, but it helped me to feel better. As I grew into a teenager, I was still a very quiet boy. I found it very hard to trust people or to make close friends. I was always waiting for the fight, for the anger to start. I had my first girlfriend when I was 17 years old. She was a kind girl, and I liked her. But I was so scared. I did not know how to be in a healthy, happy relationship. One day we had a small disagreement about a very silly thing. Instead of talking about it, I felt that old anger rise in me. I became defensive and I said some things that were not kind. I was acting just like my father. My voice was cold and hard. Then, just like my mother, I shut down and refused to talk. I was repeating the Alex sad pattern that I grew up with. My girlfriend was confused and hurt by my strange behavior. The relationship did not last long, and it ended with sadness. It was another broken thing, and I knew it was my own fault. That breakup was a painful but very important lesson for me. I saw my parents' reflection when I looked at myself. I knew I had to change, or I would have a lonely life. I did not want to be like them. I wanted to break the cycle. I did not want to build another house that was full of anger. I wanted to learn how to love and how to communicate well. When I finally turned 18, I made the decision to leave. I needed some distance from my home to heal and to breathe. I moved to another city to go to university. Living on my own was the best thing for me at that time. The peace and quiet of my own small apartment felt so good. There was no shouting, no tension, and no angry, cold silence. With the distance, I started to see my childhood more clearly. I understood that my parents' problems were never my own fault. I was just a child, caught in the middle of their war. That understanding was the first big step in my own healing. I started to read books about relationships and communication. I wanted to learn the skills that my parents never had. I learned that disagreements are a normal part of any relationship, but you can talk about them with respect and with kindness. You do not have to hurt the person that you really love. I finished university, and I started my own career. I was an adult now, and I was building my own life. I was determined to make it a different kind of life. Then I met a woman who was kind and smart and funny. I was scared to open my heart, but I took the risk. We started dating, and I practiced what I had learned. When we had our first disagreement, my old fear came back. My heart started beating fast. My hands started to get wet. The ghost of my parents fighting was right there in the room. But I took a deep breath, and I made a different choice. I did not shout, and I did not build a wall of cold silence. I looked at her and I said, "We need to talk about this." We talked for a long time, and we both listened to each other. We did not agree on everything, but we found a solution. We ended the conversation with a hug, not with a slammed door. In that moment, I felt like I had won a very big battle. I had faced the ghost of my past, and I did not let it win. I was finally breaking the sad and very destructive cycle. We are married now, and our home is a very happy place. It is not always perfect, but it is always full of respect. It is a peaceful sanctuary, the kind I always dreamed of. Our home is quiet, but it is a warm and a loving quiet. It is the sound of two people who are happy to be together. It is the sound that I always wanted to hear as a child. Sometimes I still feel the echo of my past inside of me. The fear and the sadness can come back on some very bad days. But now, I have the tools to face them and not let them win. I have learned that your childhood does not have to be your prison. The pain of the past can make you stronger and more compassionate. You can choose to learn from it and to build a better future. My relationship with my parents is still very complicated. I have forgiven them because I know they did the best they could. They were also the products of their own sad childhoods, but I keep a safe distance to protect my own peace. I love them, but I cannot let their storm enter my calm sea. My first duty is to my own family and to our happiness. Last week, I was cleaning my closet, and I found an old box. Inside it were the broken pieces of my favorite model plane, the one that was shattered on the night of that terrible fight. I took the box and I sat down with all the broken pieces. For a moment, I thought about trying to glue them back together. I thought about trying to fix that broken thing from my past. But then I smiled, and I gently closed the lid of the box. I do not need to fix that airplane, because I am not broken. The boy who built it is gone, and a stronger man is here. That box of broken pieces is a reminder of my journey. It reminds me of the boy who was lost in a very sad home. And it reminds me of the man who learned to build his own peace. My childhood was not a happy one. That is a simple truth. It was a foundation of sadness, but I built a good house on it. I chose the materials myself: love, respect, and communication. I did not have a map for this. I had to draw my own. I had to learn how to be a husband and how to be a father. I had to learn how to create the warmth that I never had. So now, when I hear the sound of my own children laughing, when I see them playing without a single worry in their eyes, I know that I have succeeded in the most important way. I have given them the one thing I always wanted as a kid: a quiet and safe place to grow up. A home that is a haven, and that is a legacy that is worth more than any money. My past is a part of my story, but it is not the whole story. It is just the first chapter of a book that I am still writing, and the later chapters are much happier than the first one. I learned that we cannot choose the family we are born into, but we can choose the kind of family we want to create. And that is the most powerful and hopeful choice of all. Thanks for watching. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep learning with me.